The ballroom sparkled under a cascade of golden chandeliers, each crystal trembling as if it shared in the excitement that hummed through the air. Isolde adjusted the delicate lace of her gown, heart fluttering not from the dance, but from the anticipation that something, or someone, unexpected might cross her path tonight. She had always been cautious, careful, the girl who followed rules without question. Yet, in the swirl of laughter, music, and the scent of roses, there was a whisper of possibility that made her pulse race like it had never before. Her eyes scanned the crowd, catching fleeting glances that promised stories untold. And then, almost like fate, she saw him. Rowan stood near the far corner, leaning casually against the railing, as if the grandeur of the night were merely a backdrop to his own quiet world. There was an air about him, a mixture of confidence and mystery, that made the bustling room fade around him. Every subtle movement, a flick of his fingers, a slight curl of a smile, spoke volumes without words. Isolde felt a tug, a magnetic curiosity she hadn't expected, threading its way through her nerves. She knew she shouldn't stare, that social etiquette demanded propriety, yet every instinct leaned closer, drawn to something about him she couldn't yet name. Their first encounter was accidental, almost comical, when a misplaced step sent them colliding near the refreshments, laughter escaping before apologies could form. In that shared moment, eyes locked and a spark ignited, brief but electric, as though the world had paused just for them. Rowan's voice, smooth and warm, brushed against her ear with a simple, "Excuse me," and in that instant, Isolde felt the thrill of a connection that felt both unexpected and inevitable. They exchanged names, small smiles, hesitant questions, and in the undercurrent of polite conversation, a deeper curiosity bloomed. Something about him invited trust, and yet the faintest shadow of mystery clung to him, whispering of secrets waiting to be uncovered. As the evening wore on, Isolde found herself drifting closer to Rowan, as if some invisible thread pulled them together through the throng of dancers. The music swirled around them, but it was his quiet presence that held her attention, grounding her in a way she hadn't realized she needed. She noticed the subtle details, the way his eyes lingered on her hands, the faint crease of thought between his brows, the easy tilt of his head when he listened. Each little gesture seemed to reveal a story, a life lived beyond the gilded walls of the ballroom, and her curiosity deepened. There was warmth in his laughter, a hint of something vulnerable that made her want to know him better, even as a part of her whispered caution. Rowan, for his part, was equally aware of the pull, though he kept it masked beneath calm composure. There was something about Isolde that drew him in, not just her beauty but a spark of resilience and intelligence that reminded him of paths he had once traveled, paths that had shaped him into who he was. Yet, shadows of his past lingered at the edges of his mind, secrets he dared not reveal too soon. Every glance she offered, every small smile, felt like an invitation and a warning at once. He measured his words carefully, letting intrigue build naturally, knowing that first impressions could either bind or break what might come next. By the time the clock chimed midnight, neither of them wanted to part, yet propriety demanded they return to their separate corners of the grand hall. As they exchanged a lingering glance, the connection felt almost tangible, like a promise whispered into the night air. Isolde's pulse fluttered with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation, while Rowan's mind raced through the possibilities their meeting might unfold. Something unspoken passed between them, a curiosity, a spark, a hint of destiny that neither could ignore. The ballroom faded into background noise, and in that suspended moment, the world seemed to shrink until it contained only the two of them. As they finally stepped away from the crowd, Rowan offered a hand, hesitant yet confident, and Isolde took it, feeling a warmth spread through her fingertips that surprised her. The garden outside the ballroom was cool and fragrant, moonlight spilling over the petals like liquid silver, and for a moment, the world felt suspended, intimate, almost secret. Their conversation shifted from polite introductions to small confessions, favorite books, childhood memories, dreams tucked away in quiet corners of their hearts. Laughter mingled with the scent of night-blooming jasmine, each shared detail stitching a subtle bond that neither had anticipated. In that fragile, glowing space, the weight of the ballroom and its expectations seemed to vanish. Rowan's eyes held a flicker of something unspoken, a trace of mystery that made Isolde's curiosity ache. He spoke in measured tones, careful not to reveal too much, yet each word hinted at a life layered with untold stories, choices made in shadows, and paths that were anything but ordinary. Isolde listened, captivated, her heart responding to the rhythm of his presence, sensing the depth beneath the surface. There was a magnetic pull, a quiet tension that made the night feel alive with possibility, yet threaded with an awareness that their connection might not be simple or straightforward. Every glance, every subtle gesture seemed to carry meaning, a silent dialogue that promised more than words ever could. As dawn approached, they reluctantly returned toward the ballroom, their steps slow, unwilling to break the fragile spell that had woven itself between them. The promise of tomorrow lingered like a secret melody, one that neither dared to speak aloud, but both felt deep in their bones. Isolde's mind replayed every word, every smile, every brush of hands, while Rowan contemplated the risk of revealing too much too soon. There was a sense that something had begun, something rare, thrilling, and perhaps dangerous, and neither could predict where it might lead. And in that unspoken space between heartbeats, both felt the stirring of a story that was just beginning to unfold. The morning after their enchanted encounter, Isolde found herself wandering the castle gardens, replaying the night over and over like a treasured melody she couldn't stop humming. Her heart still raced at the memory of Rowan's hand in hers, the warmth of his smile, and the quiet depth in his eyes. Yet, a shadow of doubt crept in as she remembered the whispers that always lingered in the corridors of her family's grand estate. There were rules, expectations, alliances forged long before she had been born, and one misstep could unravel everything. The thrill of connection wrestled with the weight of duty, leaving her torn between desire and responsibility. And just as her heart began to ache with longing, a familiar figure appeared, as if drawn by the same invisible thread. Rowan approached cautiously, his eyes flickering with both amusement and caution, aware of the delicate tightrope they were walking. There was a tension in the air, a quiet warning that their growing closeness could ignite gossip or disapproval from those who held power over their lives. Yet, even amidst the caution, their conversation flowed with ease, as though the world beyond the garden walls had no bearing on this fragile bubble they had carved out together. Every laugh, every shared glance, deepened the connection, yet the unspoken weight of their differences hovered like a storm cloud waiting to break. Rowan's charm, layered with subtle hints of his past, kept Isolde intrigued, even as the walls of propriety pressed in. Rumors and hints of Rowan's mysterious life began to filter through the castle's grapevine, subtle enough to intrigue but strong enough to provoke caution. Servants' whispers, stolen glances, and veiled remarks painted a portrait of a man whose past was as shadowed as the evening sky. Isolde felt a mixture of fascination and fear, drawn to him, yet aware that the stakes were far higher than a fleeting romance. Each secret glance and coded smile between them became a small rebellion, a quiet act of defiance against the world that sought to keep them apart. Even in the garden's serene quiet, the weight of society's expectations pressed upon them, shaping their next moves with careful precision. As days passed, Isolde and Rowan found themselves exchanging notes and fleeting letters, tiny vessels of connection that carried their hearts across the divides of propriety. Each word was chosen carefully, brimming with meaning that only they could decipher, a secret language of longing and trust. Isolde's afternoons became punctuated with stolen moments of anticipation, her mind alive with what he might have written, her fingers trembling slightly as she unfolded the delicate paper. Rowan, in turn, wrestled with his own anxieties, the fear of his secret spilling into the wrong hands gnawing at him even as he smiled at her carefully penned words. Their exchanges became lifelines, small acts of courage that tethered their hearts together amidst a sea of constraints. But the closer they grew, the heavier the weight of reality pressed down. Isolde wrestled with duty, questioning whether her loyalty to her family could withstand the pull of something so forbidden. Each whispered conversation, each secret meeting, sparked both joy and a quiet dread that someone might catch them. Rowan, ever aware of the precariousness of their situation, carried a tension in his shoulders, a tightness in his jaw, as he measured every step they took together. The castle's rumors swirled like autumn leaves in the wind, unseen yet felt, adding pressure to a bond that had begun to feel like necessity rather than choice. Even amidst moments of laughter and fleeting intimacy, the world outside loomed, a constant reminder of the impossible odds stacked against them. Tension simmered further through small, piercing incidents, glimpses of jealousy in the eyes of peers, a servant's cautious comment, a whispered warning from a well-meaning aunt. Each minor event amplified the danger surrounding their connection, sharpening their awareness of the fragile secrecy they maintained. Yet paradoxically, these pressures seemed to forge their bond stronger, as if adversity had a way of deepening the heart's resilience. Every shared smile, every fleeting touch, became a rebellion, a quiet but powerful declaration that they would not be subdued by expectations. And beneath the careful dances of secrecy, a spark of determination grew. Whatever barriers existed, they would navigate them together, even if the path was uncertain and fraught with peril. One evening, hidden beneath the soft glow of candlelight in a quiet corner of the library, Isolde and Rowan shared a moment of rare honesty. Their hands brushed as they passed a book between them, and the world outside seemed to vanish, leaving only the hum of their racing hearts. Rowan's voice was low, almost hesitant, as he admitted his fears, the danger of exposure, the whispers that could unravel everything, and the secrets he had yet to reveal. Isolde listened, heart aching with a mixture of worry and longing, realizing that the connection they had forged was as fragile as it was undeniable. Each confession, each careful admission, tightened the invisible thread binding them together. They began to navigate their stolen moments with newfound courage, aware that every secret meeting carried risk, yet unwilling to let the possibility of love slip through their fingers. Even small gestures, a note slipped into a pocket, a shared glance across the ballroom, became lifelines, proof that their connection was real, tangible, and worth the gamble. The tension of secrecy only seemed to deepen their emotions, transforming ordinary days into adventures brimming with anticipation. Each encounter left them buzzing with exhilaration and nervous dread, a cocktail of emotions that neither could resist. Through whispered plans and quiet strategies, they built a fragile sanctuary of trust amidst a world determined to keep them apart. But even as they reveled in these private worlds, the shadow of society's judgment loomed ever closer. Every corner of the castle whispered threats, subtle and sharp, and every word carried the potential to ignite scandal. Yet, in those fleeting moments when their eyes met and their fingers lingered together, they found a courage neither had known before. It was a delicate dance, one of longing and restraint, of hope and fear, but both felt that the connection was worth every heartbeat of risk, and in the spaces between the whispered letters and secret smiles, a question hung in the air. How far would they dare to go to preserve this forbidden bond? The revelation came quietly, almost like a whisper carried on the wind, yet its impact shook Isolde to her very core. Rowan, usually composed and unreadable, seemed suddenly heavier, as if carrying the weight of centuries in his eyes. He revealed pieces of his past, a lineage tangled in scandal, a family lost to misfortune, secrets that had forced him into shadows. Each word tumbled out cautiously, but the depth of his vulnerability left Isolde breathless. She felt her heart tighten, torn between awe at his resilience and fear of the dangers these secrets might bring. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of determination flickered. She wanted to trust him, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. Rowan's story was filled with contrasts, moments of triumph shadowed by tragedy, loyalty betrayed, and love lost before it could bloom. He spoke of choices made under impossible circumstances, of sacrifices that shaped his very being, and of the courage it took to survive while keeping his heart intact. Isolde listened, captivated, every nuance of his voice painting a picture of a man both haunted and heroic. Her mind raced with questions, yet her instinct told her to pause, to absorb, to feel before judging. Each detail made her connection to him more profound, more intricate, and infinitely more dangerous. As they sat together, the weight of truth settled between them like the hush of a storm yet to break. Rowan's eyes searched hers for understanding, for a glimpse of acceptance, and Isolde felt the delicate balance of choice pressing upon her. Could she trust him despite the shadows his past carried? Could she risk the stability of her own world for a love so uncertain yet so magnetic? In the quiet intimacy of that moment, the seeds of resolve were sown, preparing them both for the trials that lay ahead, and in the gentle brush of their hands, there was a promise. Whatever came next, they would face it together, heart and soul. Just as Rowan's secrets began to surface, a new shadow crept into their fragile world. Duchess Eleonora, Prince Alaric's beloved aunt, smiled warmly in public, but in private, Her letters were poison. Each anonymous note Rowan received carried threats, veiled and sharp, warning him to step away from Isolde or face ruin. The whispers of court intrigue grew louder, intertwining with the rumors about Rowan's mysterious past, making him feel cornered from every direction. He knew that the Duchess's motives were more than mere disapproval. Her ambition for power ran deep, and her schemes threatened to shatter everything he had begun to build. The weight of the kingdom's politics pressed down on him, a silent storm he could not ignore. Isolde, sensing the shift in Rowan's demeanor, pressed gently for answers, but he could reveal only fragments of the truth. Every word carried caution. Every glance betrayed worry. He was caught between protecting her and navigating a dangerous game he had never wanted to play. The castle's walls seemed to close in, corridors echoing with the faint rustle of secrets and betrayal. Rowan's mind raced, calculating steps, anticipating moves, trying to stay one step ahead of a relative who knew both the palace's secrets and the prince's vulnerabilities. And still, despite the danger, their connection deepened, each clandestine moment a rebellion against a world that wanted to keep them apart. The danger was tangible now. Every letter, every whispered warning, a reminder that love in their world came with a price. Rowan realized that to protect Isolde, he needed courage beyond his own heart. He would need strategy, allies, and the ability to outwit someone who knew him better than anyone. And as he stared out at the moonlit gardens, thinking of the path ahead, a single truth burned brighter than fear. If they were to survive this, they had to face the darkness together. The night held secrets yet untold, and the next move could change everything. Rowan and Isolde met in the quietest corner of the castle library, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the danger looming over them. He laid the latest letter before her, the ink dark and threatening, the words carefully chosen to intimidate. Isolde's heart tightened as she read, realizing just how cunning and ruthless the Duchess could be. Yet instead of fear, a spark of determination ignited within her. They would not be pawns in someone else's game. Their love and loyalty would be their shield. Every whispered plot only fueled their resolve to face the storm together. They began plotting cautiously, using small acts of strategy to stay one step ahead of Eleonora's schemes. Messages were hidden in plain sight, meetings arranged under the guise of daily routines, and every interaction with the court became a delicate dance of misdirection. Rowan felt the pressure of protecting not only his secrets, but Isolde's safety as well. The thrill of the forbidden, once sweet and light, now carried weight. Every choice might tip the balance between survival and ruin. And yet, even amidst the tension, there was intimacy in their shared defiance, a quiet strength born from trust and shared purpose. As they parted that night, the castle seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that the next days would test them in ways neither had faced before. Rowan's gaze lingered on Isolde's silhouette, determination mingling with worry in his eyes. Every shadow in the hall whispered possibilities of betrayal, every step toward their goal a gamble. But in that charged, uncertain space, a silent promise passed between them. No matter what Eleonora plotted, no matter how dangerous the path, they would navigate it together. And in the hush of the castle night, their hearts beat in unison, ready for the trials that lay ahead. The castle had grown tense, each corridor buzzing with whispers that seemed to follow Isolde wherever she went. Family expectations pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy cloak, reminding her that love was a luxury she could scarcely afford. Meanwhile, Rowan moved like a shadow through the halls, his every action measured, aware that one misstep could give Eleonora the upper hand. Secret meetings became fraught with urgency, each stolen glance and whispered word carrying the weight of possible discovery. The thrill of their rebellion had shifted into something sharper: danger, consequence, and the unrelenting pressure of outside eyes. And yet, despite the suffocating scrutiny, their bond held, resilient and quietly defiant. Isolde faced her own inner battles, questioning whether courage alone could withstand tradition's iron grip. Every time she met Rowan in secret, she wrestled with the tension between duty and desire, between safety and the leap into a love that could ruin her. Her family's expectations were unyielding, echoing in her mind like a relentless drumbeat. The castle's grand halls became a stage for restraint, where smiles and pleasantries masked hearts that beat wildly for one another. And still, even in the quiet desperation of secrecy, moments of joy flickered, shared laughter, subtle touches, the quiet reassurance that they were not alone. Rowan, burdened by the weight of his past and the threat of Eleanora's plots, found himself tested at every turn. His courage was measured not only in daring secret rendezvous but in small acts of integrity, proving to himself and to Isolde that he could be trusted. Every whispered warning, every suspicious glance from a courtier, pushed him to think strategically, to anticipate danger before it struck. And as he maneuvered through the labyrinth of court politics, he couldn't help but notice the courage blossoming in Isolde, her resolve strengthening alongside his own. Together they became a quiet force of determination, preparing for the inevitable confrontation that would either break them or solidify their bond. The tension escalated one fateful afternoon when a rumor reached Isolde's family about Rowan's true background, spreading like wildfire through the castle halls. Eyes that had once been warm now gleamed with suspicion, and whispers cut sharper than any blade. Isolde felt the familiar tug of fear and defiance entwined, her heart caught between the desire to protect Rowan and the unrelenting expectations of her family. Every step she took in the corridors seemed laden with scrutiny, and even the familiar gardens felt like a stage where their secrets could be exposed at any moment. The danger of discovery loomed larger, but it only seemed to ignite a fiercer courage in her chest. Rowan, sensing the shift in the castle's atmosphere, intensified his vigilance, anticipating every move Eleanora might make. He studied allies and foes alike, weighing each glance, each half-smile, and each unspoken threat. Every encounter became a test of loyalty, of patience, and of cunning. The stakes were higher than ever. One slip could unravel the fragile threads holding them together. And yet, amidst the mounting danger, Rowan and Isolde found strength in the quiet defiance of shared glances, subtle gestures, and fleeting touches. Their love, though tested, began to feel unbreakable, a force capable of weathering the storm around them. A pivotal event loomed on the horizon, an arranged proposal for Isolde that threatened to shatter the fragile balance they had maintained. The corridors hummed with anticipation, each whisper carrying news of alliances, expectations, and threats. While Rowan and Isolde quietly planned their next move, every choice carried weight, every action could tip the scale, and the castle itself seemed to hold its breath. The days were tense, their meetings increasingly clandestine, each heartbeat a reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. Yet in the spaces between danger and strategy, small sparks of hope flickered, the certainty that together they might yet overcome the impossible odds stacked against them. The day of the arranged proposal arrived with all the weight of inevitability, casting a shadow over every gilded hall and echoing corridor. Isolde's heart pounded in rhythm with the ominous footsteps of tradition, each moment a reminder of the walls closing in around her and Rowan. Secret glances became urgent, whispered strategies urgent, as if the very air demanded careful navigation. Rowan stayed close, a silent guardian, his presence a lifeline in a world determined to dictate her fate. Every smile exchanged with other courtiers felt like a knife twisting in the fragile fabric of their hidden bond. The palace, with its grandeur, now seemed a cage, ornate but suffocating, its beauty masking threats at every turn. The confrontation came swiftly, like a storm breaking without warning, when Eleanora presented herself with practiced charm and veiled menace. Her words dripped with politeness, yet each syllable carried a threat, a reminder of the power she wielded and the ambitions she harbored. Rowan felt the sharp sting of her manipulation, his every instinct screaming caution, yet he stood firm, unyielding, a silent testament to his love and resolve. Isolde's pulse raced as she weighed loyalty against desire, the safety of her family against the love that had become her lifeline. In that tense exchange, the stakes crystallized, revealing the true magnitude of the obstacles they faced. Even as pressure mounted, their connection deepened, moments of intimacy threading through the tension like golden strands. A brief touch of hands beneath the table, a fleeting glance across the hall, became acts of rebellion, small affirmations that they would not be controlled. The palace, the whispers, the looming threat of Eleanora's ambition, all of it threatened to crush them. Yet their courage began to solidify, a quiet fire that would not be extinguished. And in the hush of anticipation, as every eye seemed to watch and judge, they made a silent, unspoken vow. No matter the obstacles, no matter the power wielded against them, they would fight for their love, together. The castle seemed to hold its breath as Rowan and Isolde made their plan, hearts pounding in synchrony. Every thought focused on the leap they were about to take. The air was thick with anticipation, a mix of fear and exhilaration that wrapped around them like a cloak. They knew the risks, Elena's schemes, the weight of tradition, the ever-watchful eyes of the court, but the pull of their love was stronger than any threat. Every whispered conversation, every clandestine meeting had led to this moment, a point of no return. And in the quiet courage of shared resolve, they found a strength neither had realized they possessed. Their bond, tested and sharpened by danger, glowed with a fierce, unbreakable light. Rowan moved with deliberate calm, each step measured, each gesture signaling not just intent, but protection. Isolde followed, heart racing yet steady, her mind sharp with resolve and strategy. They were no longer merely two lovers defying convention. They had become partners in a fight for their very freedom. Every glance exchanged spoke volumes, a silent language born of shared trials and whispered hopes. The castle, once a place of fear and constraint, now trembled with the tension of their decisive actions. Every corridor, every hall, seemed to echo with the promise of change and the courage of hearts united. Even as danger lingered at every turn, they found moments of quiet defiance, hands brushing, stolen smiles, the simple act of being together in a world determined to keep them apart. The thrill of rebellion intermingled with the warmth of love, forging a connection that was as exhilarating as it was essential. They moved forward not just for themselves, but for the hope that truth, courage, and loyalty could triumph over intrigue and ambition. And in that fragile, electric space between heartbeats, they felt the promise of a future no one could dictate, a life built on choices made boldly, together, and without compromise. The moment of confrontation arrived with all the intensity of a storm breaking over the castle walls. Rowan and Isolde faced Eleonora, her poised smile masking fury and ambition, every word carefully chosen to strike fear. But the lovers had grown stronger, tempered by trials, and neither flinched. Rowan spoke with quiet authority, laying bare the truth of her schemes, exposing her plots in a way that left the court gasping in shock. Isolde stood beside him, her presence unwavering, radiating courage that bolstered Rowan's resolve. Together, they became an unassailable force. Love and loyalty fused into a single, powerful stand against deceit. Every whispered threat and hidden plan the Duchess had orchestrated began to unravel under the weight of honesty and strategy. Courtiers who had once watched with suspicion now shifted, surprised by the strength and integrity of the young pair. Isolde's voice, clear and steady, challenged centuries of expectation, proving that her heart and mind could not be ignored. Rowan, calm and unwavering, showed the court that true nobility was not just bloodline, but courage, honesty, and the capacity to protect those one loved. The tension in the hall crackled like lightning, dramatic and electric, as centuries of hierarchy were tested against the force of two determined hearts. Amid the drama, small moments of intimacy and trust strengthened their stand. Fingers clasped, eyes locked, silent affirmations that whatever came next, they faced it together. The Duchess faltered, her schemes exposed, her ambition stripped of power as the court aligned behind truth and justice. Every obstacle that had once seemed insurmountable now appeared manageable, weakened by the bond Rowan and Isolde had forged through courage, strategy, and love. And as the tension in the hall began to ease, a quiet realization settled over them. They had not only survived the trials, but had grown stronger, their love radiant and unstoppable. With the Duchess's schemes undone and the court witnesses of their courage and devotion, Rowan and Isolde finally breathed in the freedom they had fought for. The weight of expectation lifted, replaced by a quiet exhilaration that coursed through every glance, every touch. No longer shadows moving in secret, they could walk openly together, hands intertwined, hearts unburdened by fear. Their love, tested against the harshest trials of secrecy, betrayal, and societal pressure, now shone brighter than ever. Every smile shared felt like a promise kept, a victory carved from the tumult of the past. And in that serene triumph, the castle itself seemed to hum with approval, as if acknowledging the triumph of courage and loyalty. They took their first steps toward a new life, unbound by whispers and threats, but enriched by the lessons of the battles they had faced. Rowan's past, once a source of shadow, was now fully accepted, his lineage no longer a point of suspicion, but a testament to resilience. Isolda's family, though initially hesitant, saw the strength and devotion that bound them, softening old expectations and embracing the love that had defied the odds. Together, they began to imagine a future not dictated by tradition, but forged by choices made with conviction, bravery, and heart. Each day became a canvas, open to possibility, adventure, and the quiet joys of shared life. As the sun set over the castle towers, Rowan and Isolde lingered in the gardens where their journey had begun, the air warm and fragrant with promise. They exchanged smiles that spoke of all they had endured, all they had overcome, and all they still dreamed of achieving. The trials that had once threatened to tear them apart now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a horizon rich with hope, love, and endless potential. And as they walked hand in hand, hearts light, the future stretched before them, a tapestry of freedom, courage, and romance, proof that love, against all odds, could triumph, endure, and flourish.